Yes, and thanks for keeping your presentation so short with very complex problem. Could please the speaker join us on the stairs? We'll take just 5 minutes for 1 or 2 questions, but please the 5 speaker can just sit there. During that time, I will just do a very short wrap up of these great presentations we had. The bad news is that they describe a very catastrophic situation now happening across the world. David Bowman told us about the big 3, Australia, the US, and Mediterranean Europe. But we also had a presentation on the situation in Northern Europe. I pick up just 1 or 2 figures in every presentation. Marc told us that when fire become unpredictable and totally overwhelm response capacities, we need science, we need your support. And I pick up this figure of 90,000 kilowatt per meter. This was the most intense fire in Australia, but also not far from that in Portugal last year. And then regarding Chile, David Bowman explained us that when extreme fires with dramatic impacts, such as in Chile, result from such complex process between humans, climate, and vegetation, that is impossible to predict, and that's where we have pyrogeography. Just a figure, over 9.5 million people exposed to hazardous smoke, causing 18 deaths. Greece. We have talked about Walton-urban interfaces and the problem it poses for responders, as we are all for years. But now, fires in Greece this year have revealed how dramatic it could be, and it pledged for more research, more regulation, but also increased risk perception. And the figure obviously is over 90 people killed in these fires in Walton-urban interfaces. UK. UK, when abnormal events challenge any fire service, it points out the need for interagencies and international collaborations and lesson learned sharing. So I could have picked up the 4 England games missed for the firefighters, but actually the games were not so good. So I will prefer to pick up the 41 days duration of your operation. North American. In 2017, California had the largest fires in its history until 2018. And Russ pointed out the need for further exchanges between practitioners and researchers, and to include public awareness and social dimensions. Several figures, but one could be more than 12,000 structures destroyed in 2017 in the US. So definitely we need for social science research. So the bad news is that situation is catastrophic across the world during these last years. But the good news is that we can gather the experts, the researchers and the operationals who have the knowledge, and they are there. They are there at this table, and they are there in the room. And if we can have them together, we can work together, and that's the good news. So thanks very much for your very interesting presentations, and we are a little bit late in time, so maybe we'll take just 1 or 2 questions. Who will be first?
Hello, everybody. Very fast. I think that in this table, this very interesting situation that there are countries, let's say, or regions with a long history in fires, and other regions, let's say, UK, for instance, with more new, I don't know how to say, new neighbors or new colleagues on this problem. So, but I mean, about the diagnosis that you mentioned, that is so important, having a so clear diagnosis, and these common challenges on investing more on reducing vulnerability, even exposure, for instance, of citizens in Kuala urban interface, etc. How is your impression in terms of policy making? So is in, for instance, is in USA more and more awareness at policy making level in moving the attention from not only response to reducing exposure and vulnerability? Is in UK more attention basically in response, because you still don't have the opportunity of do the mistake of invest only in response, which is not at least solving the problem. So it is, if you can do let's say a fast slide about are things changing at policy making level?
Yeah, a very good question. In the UK, we have a national risk register, and at the moment, wildfire is on the national risk register. We've had wildfires for many years, but as we said, the intensity and severity and the frequency is increasing. The national risk register allows individual districts, areas, to identify that as a risk and then work with partner agencies to manage that risk. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, wildfires with the frequency previously being quite far in between have lost their agenda and dropped more and more. And then we'll find when we get a number of wildfires occurring, it goes back up and there's national interest again. So at the moment, we're at the peak. So everyone's really interested in UK at the moment. And we've been speaking to the Home Office and other interested parties and looking at how we can better provide that response, but also that prevention to wildfires. But I think what's quite interesting in the UK is we tend to, and it's something me and Steve were speaking about earlier on, we tend to work from what's happened mitigation-wise and how can we restore it, but we're not very good at the moment at putting something in place to prevent that wildfire occurring again. And I think that's where we really need to improve on that prevention. But I totally agree with Russ's slides, the last two. Every single point on that, I think will get us to that point, and we're not there yet in the UK.
Oh, I don't know. Did you have a question for me? So, well, I would say in the US, we are seeing a change in policy that is tending to be more aligned towards a longer term view, but we still have a ways to go before that is really the dominant paradigm.
We can address that on the Greece and also Australian perspective.
Well, I had the opportunity to visit the aftermath of the Mati fire for 1 week and talk to people, to victims, to policymakers and so. The lesson learned is that they don't care. They are not taking steps towards a new policy of prevention and mitigation. And particularly, may I point out the importance of having these very catastrophic fires as a school for new things to learn. So systematic, very detailed investigation should take place, while the governments of the region and the national government of Greece did nothing. They removed the whole thing. So you go there, there's nothing left to be studied onto. So this is something that we need to make systematically, analyze those cases and derive lessons learned and derive some regulations and from that some policy. But there's no political will, and the same for the people. They're wanting to go back to the same scenario of packed vegetation and the houses embedded in them. That's what's going on.
I don't know whether I completely understood the question, but my answer would be, or what I've been thinking about, which is a fairly disturbing thought, is that absolutely there's no society in the world that can cope with the fire problem. There's no model. That's so when you look at it, say, as an Australian, you know, you can convince yourself that people do it better overseas. But most people who are interested in fire think Australians are doing a terrific job and that they've got all the answers. And a very good example of this is the current momentum in the United States for more planned burning, because they think this is going to solve their problem. But in Australia, we know that more planned burning doesn't solve the problem. It creates new problems. And there's reasons for that, particularly the smoke issue. And so then the solution to this problem, we're in a historical moment, it's overwhelming for the society because it's structural and political, and that you can't just allocate an agency to solve a problem that's completely, a social phenomenon, a historical phenomenon. And I think the shocking thing is, that the fire crisis really is a manifestation of globalisation. And so, you would think, logically, it would be this country would be very good at solving this problem. But none of us are. We're all on a learning curve. And that's exciting, but it's also alarming because the rate of change now means that there's going to be, it's like an epidemic. It's like, if it was a disease, people would be a lot more worried, but they're sort of saying, oh, well, it happened in Greece. Oh, that's funny, it happened in Chile, or it happened here, but they're not actually joining the dots and going, this is serious. In fact, there's one counterpoint to this. There's one group that may actually have a solution, and again, it reflects politically, and that's China. China had a bad fire event in the late 1990s, and they didn't like what happened. And so the government, as a command and control government, said, we're building a massive network of green fire breaks, and that's what we're going to do, and they are. And I've just read a paper about this they're drawing on their culture, and they're building this network of green fire breaks, and because of their society, if the government says we're going to build green fire breaks, then you better get out of the way because they're going to build them. And they're building it's thousands of kilometres of these fire breaks. So that does also, I think, underscore what I'm saying, that don't wish for what you want, because it is actually a political, in the end, it's a political and a social question, and maybe an authoritarian society like China is going to solve the fire problem better than maybe more democratic societies.
So thanks. That was a very comprehensive question. So I just propose to let Marc refocus on Catalonia and address this question on the Catalonian point of view. What about changing policies?
Thank you, Sébastien. Well, there's nothing I can say to Edward about policies. He's the leading authority on that here. But anyway, the point we all have or are taking in Europe, because at the moment Europe is trying to build a kind of interagency sense of what's going on and what's going to happen. It's about, we must be living with fire, so we don't expect anybody to solve the fire problem. And that's the point Brussels is trying to do, and it's a fight between safety or security policies. So at the end, that's what's going on, and that's where the big money is going to. So it's not anymore a landscape management problem. It's a safety and security problem. And if to do that, we have to manage our landscape, then probably that will be the point where people will be focusing on it. And at the end, it's like floods or like other natural disasters. We must learn how to live. And policy is starting to understand that in the root of all these kind of discussion is the policy saying that we must solve this problem. The answer is we don't have to solve this problem. We have to adapt to this problem, and we have to know this problem, but we don't have to say anymore we will solve it, because it's not we cannot solve it. It's part of our ecosystems, and in a wake of the climate change, it will be a wave. It's a lot of people that is telling already it's a climate change wave. It will change our landscape, and it's already on the move. And if we just look globally and we join the dots, we can see that same problem evolving everywhere. So we are preparing for it, and we are going from. So at the end, I thought it will be about managing the landscape to avoid emergencies, and now is adapting to emergencies. And doing that, we just fight adapting our landscape to our needs. It's a complex thing, and this December, Brussels is holding a big meeting for that, and it's there. But again, the answers for the population needs to be in place in the policy now, and we don't have answers for all we can see there. So I don't know. You have a lot to do, so you better tell us what you think.
So thanks very much. I'm sure there will be lots of questions and conversation we can have during the coffee break. But before, we have the second session. So please, thanks again this very nice board today and this panel we had. Thank you very much.